How is everybody doing? How is everybody doing? We are discussing South Africa and the United States, the diplomatic role that's been ongoing. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, I'm not sure when this speech was actually made, there has been an escalation, a serious escalation that we need to go into right now, involving the South African ambassador to the United States. Stay with me. Okay, so the South African ambassador to the United States, Ibrahim Rasool, made some statements on a speech that he gave a few days ago. And to say these statements were stupid would be an understatement of the year. And in response, the State Department, via Marco Rubio, have announced that the South African ambassador is no longer welcome in South Africa. That is to say, he is now, he needs to go. He needs to go. Persona non grata. So let's listen to the speech that he made, and then we'll go through it step by step.
Donald Trump is launching is an assault on incumbency, those who are in power, by mobilizing a supremacism against the incumbency at home, and I think I've illustrated abroad as well. So in terms of that, the supremacist assault on incumbency, we see it in the domestic politics of the USA, the MAGA movement, the Make America Great Again movement, as a response, not simply to a supremacist instinct, but to very clear data that shows great demographic shifts in the USA, in which the voting electorate in the USA is projected to become 48% white, and that the possibility of a majority of minorities is looming on the horizon. And so that needs to be factored in so that we understand some of the things that we think are instinctive, nativist, racist things. I think that there's data that, for example, would support that would go to this wall being built, the deportation movement, etc., etc. So I think
Okay. So I have to speak to this at two levels. Not someone who, for instance, in terms of how the United States government will receive this, but in terms of how I personally receive this. I find this very offensive, actually. I find it offensive. I've been very, very clear in terms of my view that the United States government is very wrong. It's wrong on the facts of the matter of what's going on in South Africa. And I said that I think that they are misinformed. And then I elaborated further in other videos that this issue with the United States probably has to do with other disagreements that South Africa has with the United States and on Israel, especially on Iran. But in a sense, I disagree with what is being said here. But more so, I disagree because he's basically repeating Democrats' talking points. That the MAGA movement is a racist, white supremacist movement. The great replacement theory bullshit. These people are afraid of people of color, so on and so forth. I don't want to go into all of those liberal and leftist talking points. They are worn out. They are just lazy arguments. However, and this issue of deportation movement, every president in the United States has deported illegals. Barack Obama was known as a deporter in chief because you have to deport illegals. But the thing is now, when you now go into the domestic affairs of your host nation, you are now doing very inappropriate things, especially in terms of the detail in which he goes into the domestic affairs of the United States in such a partisan fashion, like repeating Democrats' talking points, leftists talking. It is inappropriate. Diplomatically, it is a no-go area. Because your role as a diplomat is not to go there and try to influence people against the incumbent government, which is exactly what Ibrahim Rasool was doing. And I've already said that the United States is also wrong in interfering in the affairs of South Africa. But the difference is that the United States is a powerful nation. And even though they are wrong on these issues, when someone is powerful and wrong and loud, they can afford to be powerful, to be wrong, because they are powerful. But South Africa is not a powerful nation. South Africa is such a small economy. South Africa doesn't even have a military, to be honest. So it doesn't make any sense to me in terms of why are you offending your host who is so powerful. And this issue of South African government persistently showing its ass to the United States, it doesn't make any sense to me. Even though I do think that the US is wrong on this on the major issue of conflict between South Africa and the US. But this that was done here by the South African diplomat was so inappropriate. It was so undiplomatic, and it was so out of line that it is not surprising that he's been declared persona non grata. I don't even understand how did he sit down and write down this speech knowing his position as the chief diplomat for South Africa and then go on and say these things. How was it? How did he rationalize it in his mind to do this? Because he's not sent to the US to be an activist, a leftist activist, to agree with Democrats and the democratic socialists like about Bernie Sanders and all those guys. He's there to facilitate relationships between South Africa and the United States, between South African business and United States business, to minimize conflict. To minimize all areas that might arise of disagreement. How is this helpful? It's not. And instead, it makes the relationship increasingly difficult. And already we are aware that the United States has a very negative view of South Africa. So in that case, how is this helpful to antagonize them while we already know that they have a very negative view of South Africa, especially knowing your position as a very small country without a military, with a small economy. Like, what is the meaning of this, really? Okay, let's continue.
I mentioned that I think that there is also an export of the revolution. It's no accident that Elon Musk has involved himself in UK politics and elevated a Nigel Farage and the reform movement in much the same way that it was instructive that on his way to the Munich Security Summit, Vice President Vance addressed the Alternative für Deutschland to strengthen them in their election campaign. And that then begins to say, what was the role then of Afrikaners in that whole makeup? And very clearly, it's to project white victimhood, as a dog whistle that.
Stop it. Stop it. Like, and this issue of Elon Musk supporting certain candidates in the UK. I mean, Barack Obama have done that in the past, endorsing prime ministers in Canada, endorsing liberal prime candidates in Europe, being very strong in his support of liberal politicians in Europe. He's been doing this consistently ever since he left office. No one has ever accused him of some sort of revolution of some sort. But when Elon Musk is using his freedom of speech to say he supports that candidate over another in Europe, so all of a sudden now it's supposed to be tied to what, some white victimhood, what, international. Guys, come on. Like, I mean, obviously, people, if you are a conservative, as I am, I'm gonna support conservative movements all over the world, and I'm assuming that's what Elon Musk is doing, and that's what also Barack Obama did, and that's what liberals do. And liberals in Europe, they are always hosting Bernie Sanders to come and talk to them and influence and public opinion. This happens all the time. And so for me, I see that he's trying to tie all of these things to the lies that are being perpetuated by AfriForum, and he's not doing a very good job at it. And I mean, like, I agree that AfriForum is pushing a false narrative of white victimhood in South Africa, which doesn't exist. But what he is trying to do now, and trying to link the United States with some sort of concerted effort of portraying whites as victims globally, it's just uncalled for. It's absolutely uncalled for. And it's especially uncalled for someone who is an ambassador to that nation that he's accusing of these things. It's really inappropriate. I don't understand, how did he think that this was okay? How did he think it was okay?
There is a global protective movement that is beginning to envelop embattled white communities, or apparently embattled white communities. It may not be true, it may not make sense, but that is not the dog whistle that is being heard in a global white base. So I think we need to understand all of that. Another
Okay, guys, and this thing of accusing people of that, when they are saying something that they believe in, or making statements that their statements are dog whistles, I find it to be very offensive, because we are saying that this person does not have the courage to say what he means to say. Therefore, he's using racist undertones to cushion what he really wants to say. It's actually very offensive. So this entire speech was so unfortunate, and it set back the diplomatic relations between South Africa and the United States back by a lot. I don't even think we can quantify how much this has set back the relationship between South Africa and the United States. And I'm wondering, who is advising these people? Who is advising these people? And for me, this is coming from, and I've already said where I think the United States is wrong on these issues. The United States is wrong on AfriForum, on the claims of AfriForum. I think that's very clear. But I'm trying to understand, because if Russia and China, very powerful nations, with Russia, for instance, which has the largest nuclear stockpile in the world, their ambassador will never say such things of the United States. And China, for instance, who is the second largest economy in the world, and not far behind from the US. And these are countries who are peers to the US. None of their diplomats will ever say such things about the US, especially not the diplomat who is a host of that country. Why then is it South Africa which has an economy that is 4 times smaller than the economy of Texas, which has an economy virtually of smaller than more than 15 individual states in the US. When I say individual states, meaning that not that it's smaller than 15 United States collectively, but smaller than their economies individually, meaning the South African economy is smaller than the economy of New York. It's individually, it's smaller than the economy of Texas individually, smaller than the economy of California individually, Illinois, Arizona, Pennsylvania individually. I can go through a list of up to 15 states that the South African economy is smaller than. It's even smaller than the economy of Arizona by the economy of Arizona is $508 billion. The South African economy is $400 billion. How is that? How is a country that it has an economy that is this small, that can't even afford to go to have a trade war with Texas, let alone the United States? How is a country like that showing its ass to the United States? Explain that to me. And a country that doesn't even have a military. South African soldiers are unfit and fat, and some of them are pregnant. Basically, they can't even do peacekeeping missions in Africa. They don't even have missiles. They don't even have no nuclear weapons. Nothing. No supersonic jets. Nothing. And you are showing your ass to the United States. Explain the wisdom of that. Guys, really, I think South African government is going to put us in a very big mess because of their stupidity. And I don't even understand what it is that they are trying to achieve with this. Because they can't go tit for tat with the United States. Even if the United States is wrong on certain things, which I've already said, the United States is wrong on a lot of things. But we can't go tit for tat with the United States. What are you trying to achieve? And this issue, we can't be bullied. Okay, you can't be bullied. You will be broke though and can't be bullied. That's what's going to happen. Yeah, so for me, this is just, it's very disappointing. It's very disappointing. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Let me know what you think. Comments below. If you're South African, let me know what you think. If you're American, also let me know what you think.